by raising your electronic hand, and then you will unmute your microphone and have a chance to ask question. Nai, you're first. Ask to unmute. We don't hear you yet. Unmute yourself.
I got it.
There you go.
I just have a question. For people that have osteopenia, there's that contraindication that you talk about. What happens? Because I can feel a difference I did the extension course, and then I'm going this one. Because I could feel there's extension actually when we finished this just now. And it was very interesting because I always thought that I need to pay more attention to extension because of osteopenia. However, I just wonder when we do this, could you provide like a modification for people that are osteopenia while you're doing this? And said you can do the flexion, but you just watch out how far you go.
Nai, thank you so much for the question. I will do my best to do that. And you help me, all of you help me by attending to yourself while doing the movements, because there is no foolproof method. Some people sneeze and they break bones. Some people get out of bed and break bones because their bones are so vulnerable. So therefore, will I say to somebody, oh, you shouldn't be rolling off the bed? Shouldn't be. That's not the point. We want to bring back strength, but it needs to be so skillfully. And I wish I had like a easy, foolproof, you're not gonna hurt yourself if you do these and these movements. It's kind of like back and forth. Always, as a great rule, you will have this program forever. This will be yours. So as a rule of thumb, do 50. If you have osteopenia, do 25% of movements. Even if you could lift your head that much, you lift your head just that amount when you do the movements for the first time. Maybe the second time when you do, you add 10%. The beauty of the method is that the improvement is not dependent on size of movement. So often in our mind, in my competitive mind, and I'm plenty competitive, so I drive myself nuts. I'm not free. I'm only part-time Buddha. I drive myself. I hurt myself. I injure myself. I lick my wounds. I recover. But what I was saying is that the improvement in skill is independent from size of movement. Because what we want is to distribute the movement throughout your whole system better. That's number one. Number two, we want to learn how to elongate, how to make movements in your everyday life. We look down with elongation, not with compression. And that you can learn from the first 5% of movement. You don't need to go anywhere. Your eyes, how you move your eyes, it happens right from the beginning. How you breathe out, it happens from the beginning. If you're moving your elbows, this happens already here with this amount. If let's say somebody cannot open the elbow because of the frozen shoulder, or they can't even have the hands behind the head, then they may be hands on the shoulders and move a little bit this and a little bit that. And you will sense, oh, this is flexion and this is extension. So we can do micro movements and be very successful in sessions. But I will try my best to keep in mind when there are some little bit more challenging situations that could increase vulnerability, to mention, to give suggestions for how to replace a certain movement with the other.
Thank you. It's been very helpful.
Very good. But the thing that is, like, we're using flexion in order to be more erect. Absolutely. That's fabulous.
It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Because with osteopenia and osteoporosis, always the risk is that the people are already flexed. They're already with the curvature of the spine, with the increased kyphosis of the spine. So the head is already hanging in front, and it's already, those tissues are being compressed. So we use these movements in order to reset those spindles so you can actually enjoy a little bit more upright posture and start loading that spine a little differently than before.
But with this one exercise.
Super. Thank you so much. I'll ask you to mute yourself, or I mute you. And Hi.
I want to ask you about lateral flexion. During this lesson, I kept feeling that one side is dramatically more flexed than the other in the frontal plane. So
in today's session, the movements were quite in sagittal plane, but throughout the course, in the next 4 sessions, we will clarify use of the oblique muscles and how you're using one side. So there will be more clarification in terms of movements with rotations and side bending. But you are right that I bet number of people shared that sensation that even though you were trying to lift the head drifts a little bit toward the side, or you look a little bit toward one side, or one side of the lower back flattens while the other side stays arched. So yes, we are going to create situations when there will be diagonals on this plane sagittal, another diagonal configuration.
So what I wanted actually to ask you is that it was a very frustrating sensation, to be honest, to feel the crookedness in the body, like the body is
that's the unpleasant side of the coin of awareness, that the more awareness we become, the more imperfections we notice in our body. And especially for people with scoliosis, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that where people would come to me with obvious scoliosis and they want to improve, but they enjoy feeling actually perfectly fine, perfectly straight. On the X-ray, it looks like 40 degrees of curvature, big, huge asymmetry. But the person, that brain, which is a wonderful aspect of our human brain, is that it wants to have a sense of invariance, stability. It wants to have a grid. This is right, this is left, this is up, this is down, so I can function even if I'm like that. I want to learn how to function beautifully, not to be confused. So as we are paying attention to these movements, you will initially start to feel some big discrepancy. I would say just bear with that and see if you can, I don't know if I can say enjoy crookedness, but be okay with crookedness and just bear with it. I think it will get better.
So actually what I wanted to ask is the principle that you just talked about the spindles in the muscles which are protecting us from ripping the muscles. Would you do the same with the side bend like you would?
I would do the same with side bend, which is opposite to, for example, Schroth method or another standard approaches to treatment of scoliosis. Because normally what we do with scoliosis, when you feel something short, see something shorten, you're trying to stretch it. You're trying to strengthen the opposite group of muscles. What Dr. Feldenkrais contributed to, and it wasn't only him, there were other people like Dr. Jones who created this system called strain counter strain, where you treat muscle spasm like this, that if you see some, let's say, back muscle in spasm, you bring the origin and insertion of that muscle closer together. You hold it for 90 seconds so you can reset that spindle and slowly return, and you find out, oh, the tissue is less painful and it's longer. So with scoliosis, you can approach it too, which to our oversimplified mind will say like, no, I'm doing something wrong. I'm bending into the side that I'm already bent. You can do that if you do it quietly, with mastery, gently. You will find out that crookedness, that shortness actually elongates.
Okay.
Thank you, Nama. Nikki.
Well, Marek, I am torn because you kind of suggested that I not...
I'm surprised you're here, but...
I know, and I can't stay away. And, of course, I get something out of it, even doing minimal, as
I would say so. I would, yeah.
Had gotten a lot. But I had a question which you'll probably be answering in the future sessions, and that's about, I did a lesson a while back, and very minimally too, but it's the one where you hug yourself on one part of it, and then the other part is you cross the knees over. Well, that's twisting, right?
Correct, that's twisting.
Which is all equally bad for osteoporosis, isn't it?
Not necessarily. Like extension and twisting are much less risky. Flexion, usually the flexion is because you have, do I have any bones here? Oh, I did my cleaning of my desk. I shouldn't clean my desk ever. It should always be like, I put my bones somewhere. Basically, what's the risk of, if this is the front, my finger is the front of the spine. With osteoporosis, the bodies of vertebra, these where the discs are, get little bit, their internal scaffolding or internal sheetrock or wall bearings get little weaker. And therefore, when we flex, you're doing something like this, which creates more compression on the front end plates of the bones here. And this compression, when the bone is weak, can cause fracture. That's how my mom once was, she's of course in her 80s and she's carrying 50 pounds something, yeah? And she fractured her spine because of that kind of position. She was already here and she increased the load by carrying some big load in front. So in principle, somebody, a good lawyer, could sue me that I say any bending, like saying yes, for some spines, this will be already enough to create compression and therefore fracture. So yes, it's risky, but some of risk is necessary to keep, because some stress is necessary. We just need to learn how to deal with stress, how to avoid too much stress, how to challenge a little bit, give the system time to rest. Unfortunately, I don't have the formula. I cannot say for whom, how much. It's always better to stay on the safe side. And Nikki, you've studied Feldenkrais, you did a training program, you have body intelligence, you've done so much. So I trust that you will be able to take these lessons and do some movements. And when you feel a little bit iffy, you just lay off, you do it in your mind, and I think you'll be quite good. But in terms of rotation, not as, flexion is definitely the most vulnerable place.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Gila?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much. This was incredible. I just had a quick technical question. Like you were mentioning how the eyes interacting is not a skeletal interaction. And I guess you were saying it's more neurological or something else. But I feel like maybe, my question is there an impact of the eye muscles interacting with the neck? Like there are muscles in the eye. So does that mean, so that they're working, right?
Of course. This is the principle of neurons that fire together, wire together, and neurons that fire apart, wire apart. In other words, habits are created because A coexists with B. Every time I fire A, B also fires A, B also fires. If I do long enough, the moment A fires, B will be firing at the same time, whether I want it or not. Now, what we do in Feldenkrais is we do this, or first we do whatever you do. Does A fire with B or not? Do you know? I don't know. I'm confused. Maybe, perhaps, blah, blah, blah. I feel myself. Then fire A and B at the same time and notice what it is. Do this several times. Stop, rest a little bit. Then fire A, don't fire B, or fire B, don't fire A. Fire A, put the position in such a way that the B cannot fire anymore, like tilting the pelvis or asking you to look with the eyes above while you're tilting the head down. This is creating fire A, quiet B. Because actually there are muscles that are responsible only for looking downward, and opposite set of muscles that, even opposite set of nerves, cranial nerves, are responsible for looking up and looking down or looking right and left. So now you're starting to refine. How can I do this with my eyes, or with my eyes fixed on the same spot on the ceiling, or with my eyes totally free? If you do that, you are weakening your habit. And therefore, you're starting to have more choices. And maybe some choices that were healthier, more spontaneous, more graceful, simpler for you are starting to appear, because they are not masked by me getting in my own way, because I always did it, so I always will continue. Yeah.
But you still think it's better when our eyes look down when we're flexing, right?
Typically, your eyes will guide you. If you look right, you will turn your head right. You are not going to do this, right? Unless
you're saying that happened over time because of the neurons firing together.
Correct, correct. As a general rule of thumb, where eyes go, the head will be going, and the spine will be following.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for everything. This is so cool.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to have you. All right, so look in your email box for your workout with me tomorrow. It will be the first session. We are actually going to stay with the lesson. How its structure is that we will be going deeper into what you experience, and we'll be breaking down. You will have one lesson on breathing, one lesson of eyes. You will have a chance to experience it and re-experience again. And till the next time.